All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll. Brought to you by our good friends here at FanDuel. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network. And I am here. I am ready. I am excited to discuss the Denver Nuggets as they have a practice day today. They will be traveling for their preseason finale tomorrow or later today and then play it tomorrow. And I don't expect we're going to learn much from that game. I think the most likely scenario is that all of the starters rest, several of the bench players, like the older bench players like Jonas Valanciunas, Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., those guys rest. And then this becomes very much an audition of sorts for some of the younger guys, some of the two-way guys, some of the camp guys, different players that the Nuggets would like to give a shot to, give an opportunity to, especially to other teams, especially if they're not tied to the Nuggets roster, like the camp guys, for example, Moses Brown, Kessler Edwards, those guys. If the Nuggets are not going to sign them outright, which I think they probably will, they'll probably get, I think they have Exhibit 10 contracts and will likely end up in Grand Rapids. But I would expect Denver to really not play a bunch of people on Friday. So what we have at this point is the information that we have. We have 4 games worth of lineup data that, as you know, I have gone through and I like to put in my rotation charts. This is, let me make sure that I show everything. So this is game 1. This is game 2. This is game 3. This is game 4. If you're listening on the audio side, apologies. I will explain each of the lineups verbally as well. But the long and short of it is that there are 4 different combinations of rotations that the Nuggets have used so far. And I'm going to tell you what I like. I'm going to tell you what I don't like. I'm going to tell you what the Nuggets have utilized that I think they will continue to do so. And I will tell you the combinations that we haven't seen quite yet that I am looking forward to watching. We'll go through each of these, and I think this will be an informed process. I was looking for actual like play-by-play lineup data from the preseason. NBA.com doesn't have it. I haven't seen any place that actually carries it. Not surprising, of course, it is the preseason, but it would have been nice to be able to get some like play-by-play and plus-minus data and things like that for this exercise, but we don't need that in order to have a good time. I think that the most important thing for Denver so far is that they've used each of these games as more of a even more sequentially of a tune-up. Game 1, it was very much, hey, we're going to play the starters together, we're going to play the bench together, they're only going to play the first half, the starters, and then we'll see what happens for the rest of the game. Game 2, they played just a little bit more. Game 3, they played a little bit more of a staggered look and different combinations and were able to get more creative. And then game 4 was the actual dress rehearsal, this one that Denver had on Tuesday night in front of the home crowd. Appreciate you, David Adelman. It was nice to see that in person and be able to get a good look at some of the things that Denver was good at, some of the things they were bad at. And it was nice to, I think, have some actual good data points to be able to track some of this stuff. But without further ado, let's get into it. The lineups that I have liked so far. First of all, the starters is pretty clear. This is from game 1. As I mentioned, they played 8 minutes in that first game in the first quarter. Then they played a little stretch in the second quarter. In the following game, Aaron Gordon sat, but you still had Peyton Watson kind of reprising the Aaron Gordon role, and he did a pretty good job of it. Game 3 was a really nice tune-up against the Clippers where they played all of their guys, and you basically had a whole bunch of minutes and a whole bunch of rotations with Murray, Brown, Johnson, Gordon, and Jokic. And then game 4, you didn't have as much of it in the second quarter, but Denver played beginning of the first, beginning of the third. Those stretches were great, and Denver, I think, is going to flourish whenever their starters spend a significant amount of time. I asked David Adelman at practice on, gosh, was it? It was, I think it was last Friday, maybe something like that. Um, I asked him about some of the concerns that he has about over indexing on certain lineups and having to get more creative because the Nuggets, it would be very easy, and Michael Malone fell into this trap on several occasions. Very easy to just go back to the lineup, the starting group that you really like. That's really good. That's really easy, and it makes a lot of sense. Um, Very easy to just go back to that one and play it over and over again without building up the infrastructure around that lineup to actually make tangible progress. And he talked about, like, yeah, it's tough because you want to, especially in the preseason, you want to get Cam Johnson, all of the, like, actual reps that he needs to develop and feel some comfort with that group, because it is clear based off of these 4 games, he's still a little bit iffy in terms of his overall fit and how he's going to play next to those 4 guys. But what we've seen so far is progress over that time. And I think that there is at least a good indication that the Nuggets are in a good place with that starting group. They will play it a lot, but hopefully they don't play it too much and they can continue to work on some of these other combinations, because frankly, that's where the Nuggets lost the playoffs last year. They didn't have enough other combinations that they felt good about in the postseason. And I could have made that prediction for you back in December or January, because they were not playing those other combinations enough and not trusting them when it matters. Okay, so the starters is one lineup. Later in this first game, they played a combination that I liked. Bruce Brown, actually, no, it was Jamal Murray, Bruce Brown, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, Nikola Jokic. I don't remember if it was actually in this game or if it was in a different one. No, it was in game 2, I'm going to guess. Yeah, it was a small combination here. And I liked it. I thought it was nice. I thought that there were, like, the actual lineup there: Murray, Bruce, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, Nikola Jokic. You get the shooting that you need. You get the defense and the athleticism from Bruce Brown and Peyton Watson. This is a lineup where you can play really fast. Denver's not going to have a great defense during the stretch, but this is one where if you make the right plays, if you can get a stop, you can get out and run, and you're probably going to score a lot of points in transition. Another one that I liked: Christian Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. That one was played in this game 3 against the Clippers. It was a point guardless lineup. And that one, I think, is a really important one for Denver this year. Whether it's Tim Hardaway Jr., whether it's Bruce Brown, the Nuggets are going to have these point guardless lineups if they're going to stagger Jamal Murray, because it's not always going to be Bruce Brown. Now, there is a justification, I think, and the Nuggets did not try this. Actually, I'll label that down in the second segment. I'll make sure to discuss that. But I think for this one in particular, I've really liked what I've seen from Christian Brown. I really like what I've seen from Cam Johnson in terms of their ability to navigate ball pressure and actually handle in the half court, again, like in a lineup that doesn't feature Jamal Murray or another point guard option. I think that they can do it, especially when it's next to Jokic. This is a lineup that should dominate people, and the size that you play with this lineup is really encouraging. If Tim Hardaway Jr. is your weak link on defense, they'll be able to hide him a little bit better in this kind of lineup than they will if they have more smaller players around him. But Christian Brown is 6'7", Cam Johnson is 6'9", Aaron maybe 6'8", Aaron Gordon is 6'8". Like, these guys are big enough, they're strong enough. Obviously, Jokic can help captain things. I think that this will be a really good group. Another one I like: Jamal Murray, Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, and Jonas Valanciunas. This is the bench stagger group. It's at the end of this first quarter, start of the second quarter in this particular game, and it made a lot of sense to me. I think it's something that the Nuggets are going to use a ton. They are going to rely on Jamal Murray to kind of pick up and stabilize the second unit. It allows Bruce Brown to not have to play point guard. He can play the shooting guard. He can play a combo guard position where, yeah, he takes on some tough defensive assignments, but for the most part, it's a little bit less pressure on him individually. And I like the idea of Murray and Valanciunas playing together. I want to see more of that. I think that we're going to see a lot of it in the regular season. And the infrastructure that you need around that group is that you need spacing, you need defense, you need athleticism, you need all of the buzzwords for, hey, Murray is when he's trying, he's a solid defender, but when he is overtaxed and overburdened and has a 30% usage rate with this group, he's going to need some breaks. The Nuggets are going to need to give him some breaks. Bruce Brown can help with that. Peyton Watson can help with that. I like the idea maybe of even staggering Aaron Gordon with this group. I like the idea of staggering Spencer Jones with this group. There could be some opportunities for, you really focus on Murray and Valanciunas from an offensive perspective if they have a good matchup, and then you really amp up the defense. That I think could work. Other lineups I like, Julian Strawther, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Nikola Jokic, Jonas Valanciunas. That came from this Clippers game as well. I thought that this one was where it really started to get creative with a lot of the looks that they were able to do. Christian Brown, obviously, with him and Strawther out there, you're trying to figure out who's going to bring the ball up the floor, who's the initiator. Maybe it's even Peyton Watson at times. But it's the Jokic-Valanciunas combination. Like, what do you need around that group in order to make it look good? You're going to need athleticism. Again, you're going to need defense, and you're going to need spacing. Like, Jokic and Valanciunas are going to have the ball in their hands more than anything. You don't want them to bring the ball up the court, but if they can get up the court, if they could get set in a half-court position, if they could develop, carve out some space, if they can fight for position rather than having to bring the ball up the floor, in Jokic's case, they're going to benefit tremendously from just having so much size that other teams have to panic whenever they're in that position. So I think that Denver should be breaking that out against teams like Charlotte, Washington, Toronto, I think would have been a good one. I think some of the lower tier teams, but not just lower tier. It's more about can you put so much pressure on a team that doesn't have a real great solution for one big player that, okay, now you've got two and they just crack. Like, there are plenty of opportunities, I think, for that to happen, and the Nuggets showed it. The Clippers weren't a team that was going to crack under that pressure. Yes, they got a little bit frazzled by it, but they are smart enough. I also think that they could realistically counter with Brook Lopez and Ivica Zubac on the floor. They didn't do that. That would be very fascinating to watch. It's just when you get these four towers on the floor and basically have two Titans going back against two Titans, that'd be pretty sick. But there's plenty of lineups and plenty of combinations that the Nuggets showed that I think make a lot of sense. Focusing in a little bit more on some of these lineups I like. Let's go with Christian Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, and Jonas Valanciunas. This one, you get three starters out there. You get Murray and Jokic resting, and in place, you get Jonas Valanciunas and Tim Hardaway Jr. spacing, size. I think that there is probably not going to be a lot of utility there, but I remember back in the championship year, there were these lineups that Denver was able to play without Murray and Jokic that were able to be successful as long as the other three starters were out there. I'm not sure how often Denver's going to be able to get to a group like that, just because if Jokic and Murray are constantly kind of alternating minutes trying, like, if they're playing 48 minutes on the court, at least one of them is out there. There's going to be a very rare time where both of them are sitting. However, if there is a moment where that happens, then this could be a lineup that I think would be pretty fun. Another one, Murray, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, Peyton Watson, Jonas Valanciunas. That was played in this fourth game. Another kind of tune-up game. Beginning of the second quarter, you get Cam Johnson at the 2. Like, holy cow. Already you've got some great size there. Peyton Watson moves to the 3. Aaron Gordon's a traditional 4. And Jonas Valanciunas is a big 5. Like, that is a huge lineup. The note that I put next to this one is a playoff lineup. This one is one where you have a very specific matchup. There is a team that you are facing that they have good size on their second unit. You need a center to actually match up with that. You can't just slide Aaron Gordon to the 5 in that case. You want somebody to match up with them, but you also know that you want Aaron Gordon and his skill set out there. You want Jamal Murray out there. You want Cam Johnson out there, but you also need a perimeter defender out there. So, like, who's your best perimeter defender? It's probably Peyton Watson. So it's a playoff lineup, and it's something that I think Denver could really explore. I'm looking forward to seeing all these combinations, folks. It's gonna be a fun year tracking the rotation. I'll say I've got some things that I want to try with the rotations that I think that you will be interested in for sure. Cody says season opener is a week away. Let's look at the Warriors lineup. Actually, Warriors are lining up Steph Curry, Moses Moody, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Al Horford. How would Denver match up with that particular group? Among, like, just playing the starters, like, the starters, I think, match up really well with that. You've got Jokic, who will guard Horford most of the time. You have Aaron Gordon, who will guard Draymond Green. You probably have Christian Brown. Actually, this is a tough one. This is interesting. Do you have Aaron Gordon guard Draymond Green or Jimmy Butler? And do you have Christian Brown guarding Steph Curry or Jimmy Butler? That's an interesting one. That's one where Denver might have some questions. Do you have him guarding Jimmy? It's very, very interesting. That one I'll have to think about. Yeah, this will be one. We'll play with that one a little bit later in the year. Yeah, Christian Brown, he guards Curry. You want him chasing him around, probably. You probably don't want Murray chasing around Christian Brown. Jimmy Butler would try to get Murray into foul trouble. You probably have Cam Johnson guarding Jimmy Butler. That's the good thing about having Cam Johnson instead of Michael Porter, is that you don't feel like you are, like, at risk in that situation. Cam has to be smart. He has to try to avoid fouling as much as he can, but he's mobile enough that he can do it, and he's strong enough that he can do it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. So interesting concept, something that we'll have to look at a little bit stronger next week. Final lineup that I liked for what it's worth was Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. That lineup was played middle of the second quarter in the Chicago Bulls game. And it's not something that I think is going to be like, oh, holy cow, they've got a plus 20 net rating or plus 15 net rating. That's not what I think it is. But I do think it's kind of a good approximate of the lineup that the Nuggets used in the championship run with you get Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. Instead of KCP in this case, you get Tim Hardaway Jr. for spacing purposes. It's not the same level of defense, obviously. Like, Tim can defend in certain circumstances, but you're going to have Christian really amp up the defensive pressure in that one. But as long as everybody's smart and focusing on what they need to do, there's no reason why Denver can't make that a really strong defensive group. And it's one where you get Jamal Murray and Cam Johnson a little bit of a break. So something to think about there. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to discuss some of the lineups I didn't like, and as well as I think we'll kind of get into that rotation that I think the Nuggets are going to use going at least at the beginning of the regular season. We'll be back here on Pickaxe and Roll. This podcast is brought to you by Delete Me. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone feel vulnerable. Data brokers, they profit off of your data. It's a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. Have you ever been the victim of identity theft, harassment, doxing? If you haven't, you probably know someone who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to deleteme.com/hit and use promo code HIT at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/HIT and enter code HIT at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/HIT, code HIT. All right, we're back at it. Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show, folks. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. We're just going through a bunch of these different lineups, a bunch of these different looks. I think that the Nuggets have a lot of different factors that they can continue to look at, continue to explore, and some things that, again, they showed a lot. They're 3-1 in preseason. Record obviously doesn't really matter, but the process by which they got there, it got better and better and better as the preseason went along. I think they have accomplished what they've set out to do. It is why I think they are not going to play their starters on Friday. Probably get a little bit more information about that in the coming days, not days, hours, just because there's a practice that's happening a little bit later today. So we'll see what David Adelman has to say. Says, all aboard the Captain Blackburn Express is about to set sail for the 2026 NBA season. Yes, sir. We're having fun. We are enjoying life. And I do think that there is plenty to be encouraged about. So naturally, Ryan's going to talk about the things he was discouraged by at this point. That's me. That's who I am. Let's look at a couple of different lineups here. First lineup I didn't really like. Murray, Tim Hardaway Jr., Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Nikola Jokic. That was used as the first sub on multiple occasions. I think that is not awesome. There's a couple of things I don't necessarily like about it, but the main one is that Christian Brown, Peyton Watson are moved to the 3 and the 4 in this case. And with Murray and Tim in the backcourt, you're really small. So when you start to play guys like Brown and Watson on the ball defensively, it moves Murray and Tim Hardaway into positions where they are the help defenders. And if Denver gets into that on a consistent basis and they start to go really small, that lineup is going to struggle defensively, despite the fact that Christian Brown and Peyton Watson are out there. If you replace Tim Hardaway Jr. with Aaron Gordon in that case, that's a great defensive lineup. If you replace Murray with Spencer Jones, not a lot of other great size options for Denver in that front court, unfortunately. So it's going to be a struggle. Like they have not a great combination of mobility and athleticism and defensive skill as a full-on roster, but that I think is going to be one of those lineups that struggles. Another one that struggles that was in this first game, Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, Jonas Valanciunas. That was the look. I just realized that that wasn't the one I was showing on screen. My fault. From the first game, the all bench lineup that the Nuggets used: Bruce Brown, THJ, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, Jonas Valanciunas. I just don't think that that all bench lineup is going to be successful against most NBA teams. I think you're probably going to get this kind of breakdown against the top 5 NBA teams in like across the league. This lineup is going to really struggle against other teams that are above average. It's probably going to really struggle against the like average teams. It's probably going to be okay. Um, Maybe it's a -2, a -3 on an average basis. Against subpar teams, bad teams, it's probably going to be even to positive, and you're going to be able to get through those kinds of games for the most part. And against bad teams, it will be fine. Like it's not that is not going to be a major issue. There are enough elements there that I think you can be positive about. And especially if you have a good matchup for Jonas Valanciunas, where he's going up against another big body, he's really battling another guy. Like let's say it's Steven Adams, for example. I think that Jonas can be good in that matchup. Like you just don't want him to have to deal with a whole bunch of speed and athleticism on the perimeter. But I just think the majority of the time, if the Nuggets are using a bench lineup, they're probably going to struggle. Like all bench is going to be tough. Now, it doesn't mean that it can't work. Doesn't mean that there are like there won't be issues. Like they'll be okay, I think. But it's going to be fascinating to track throughout the year, because if Denver's all bench lineup can be good, unlike last year's all bench lineup, then maybe you could get some breaks for your starters. That'd be great. Another lineup I'm a little bit shaky on: Jamal Murray, Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Christian Brown, Nikola Jokic, as well as Jalen Pickett, Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Julian Strawther, Jonas Valanciunas. Basically, you get a big center, you get a point guard, but then you also are playing 3 smaller wings. You've got Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., and one of Christian Brown or Julian Strawther out there. Like if you have those guys playing the 4, it's not a great idea. I think that lineup came in the second game, I want to say. Where Christian kind of slides to the 4, and then Julian played the 4 for a significant period of that time. I think that like this is going to be a tension point for Denver, because like they're having to play Julian Strawther at the 4 just to get him in the game. Like that's one of the, I think, discouraging things when you're thinking about the season. If you're going to play Jalen Pickett, it pushes Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr. down a position, and ultimately, if they wanted to play Julian Strawther, it pushes him down 2 separate positions. I think he's fine if he's playing the 3. Playing the 4 is a different beast, and Denver is going to struggle to get Julian Strawther on the floor in a lot of these occasions because of the personnel that they have and that they want to play. That's going to be a tension point. So Tim Hardaway Jr., I think, is on the, like, he's going to need to start making some shots, or else the Nuggets are going to start to get a little bit more creative with the way that they're doing their stuff, the way that they, like, maybe they're staggering. Peyton Watson is mostly going to be the backup 4, so this is not going to be much of a concern. But if you also want to get Julian Strawther out there, then you're probably going to get some shorter rotations. You're going to get some different things that I think are things that Michael Malone probably would not have done in terms of shortening players' rotations, playing more people at the same time. That, I think, would be a good thing for Denver, not necessarily a bad thing. You also get a couple of other lineups: the Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson, Peyton Watson, Jonas Valanciunas lineup. That one was tried in this third game, and actually, no, it was this game? No, it was the fourth game. My mistake. It was tried in the fourth game here. It was at the end of the first quarter, where you get the 4 bench guys that are going to play the most, plus Cam Johnson. There's a few people around the Nuggets verse that are pretty excited for a lineup like this. I don't necessarily agree. I think that you're still putting a lot of playmaking pressure on 3 different guys in Brown, Hardaway Jr., and Cam Johnson. who you'd like to see have the ball kind of delivered to them as opposed to them having to do all the work themselves. So if it were up to me, I would replace one of Bruce Brown or Tim Hardaway Jr. with Jalen Pickett in this particular group. If I am staggering Cam Johnson, if I'm dead set on that, I do like the Cam Johnson, Peyton Watson, Jonas Valanciunas trio. I think that makes a lot of sense just from a logistical standpoint. And I think that there are things that you're going to want to see. But one thing that would help is just having a point guard, having somebody that is purely out there so that they can get that lineup set up. And that could, like, Jalen Pickett could do that. He absolutely can. The question is whether, if you are David Adelman, how often can you get to that? How often do you want to get to that? How often can you justify taking Bruce Brown or Tim Hardaway Jr. off the floor if they are above like Jalen Pickett in the pecking order? That is a tough question. So it's one of the concerns I have about this season is that, yeah, Denver's got a lot of vets now, and I think they're going to feel a lot of pressure to play those vets and get them as much time as possible. So we'll see what happens. 721 asks, how do you feel about the zone defense like box and one? Can the Nuggets try that when playing the Warriors? It's going to depend on the lineups. I think that the Warriors are now smart enough with some of the older veterans that they have. Butler will be able to figure out how to navigate that. Al Horford will figure out how to navigate that. Draymond Green is one of the smartest players out there from a on-court standpoint and seeing the floor. Steph Curry will navigate that. He's navigated it before. He will take a lot of attention, and then the Warriors, in theory, should be able to leverage that attention into something good. So I doubt that box and one makes a lot of sense. Now, there are some defenses, some zone defenses that they should try. Now, should you try it against, like with Jonas Valanciunas and Nikola Jokic on the floor? Probably not. I am going to say that's probably not going to work. But, I mean, who knows? Who knows? You just never know at this point. So I'd be curious to see what the Nuggets decided to do. Okay. I think that was the last one. Oh no, there's one more. The Murray the Murray, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic, Jonas Valanciunas lineup. There's a lot of people that want to see it. The two bigs, but also playing Aaron Gordon at the 3, Christian Brown at the 2, Jamal Murray at the 1. Personally, I feel like that's just a waste. I don't know if that's a lineup that you want to break out when you've got 4 starters out there. Like 4 starters plus Jonas Valanciunas feels like a little bit shaky. You don't have enough spacing out there. And the defense, despite the fact that you've got Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray out there, the defense is going to struggle because of the compromising nature of having to play both of those guys together. So I think that's when you junk up the lineups. That's when you have other bench guys out there. You try some of those things. It's not what I would do when I have 4 other starters out there on the floor. So I'm not necessarily a big fan of it. Okay. Last couple of things, and then we'll get out of here. Lineups that I still want to see from Denver. Like I talked about with that Jalen Pickett lineup, I think the Pickett in the point guardless lineup, I think makes a lot of sense, where you get at the beginning of the first, at the beginning of the third quarter, if Jamal Murray is going to stagger, I don't think it's the worst idea to get Jalen Pickett those minutes at the beginning of the first, or like the middle of the first, middle of the third quarter, where rather than have Tim Hardaway Jr. or Bruce Brown come in, you get another point guard that can actually kind of set the table. He just plays a very brief amount of time, like probably 8 total minutes or so, 4 minutes in the first, 4 minutes in the third. And it doesn't really disrupt things that much, but it would be a lineup I think that the Nuggets could trust. They've debated, like they've gone to those kinds of lineups before when they have a point guard injury and they just want to make sure that they are kind of bridging the gap with some of those groups. But I think that makes sense to try to, like, if you're going to be willing to get creative with some of those groups, like you don't necessarily want Jalen Pickett out there if Jamal Murray is also out there. But in the minutes where Murray is sitting, maybe there's something else that you could do with that. I still want to see Cam Johnson at the 4 a little bit more. I just kind of going through and looking at each of these groups, how much did Cam Johnson play the 4 in the preseason? Okay, there's one lineup that he played: Murray, Tim Hardaway Jr., Christian Brown, Cam Johnson, Jokic. I'd love to see that group for a little bit more of extended period of time, but that was the only minute that he played at the 4. Like, you want to try to take advantage of the spacing and what happens when you really go kind of small and you spread it out a little bit. I think playing Julian Strawther in a lineup like that makes some sense. Murray, Bruce Brown, Julian Strawther, Cam Johnson, Nikola Jokic, I could see being pretty awesome. I could see Denver. Like, I still want to see a little bit more Aaron Gordon at the 5. You don't want to see it for extensive periods of time during the regular season. Like, it's something that you kind of break out in the playoffs. But I want to know what happens when Denver has to go small. Again, Cam Johnson can play the 4. Peyton Watson at the 4, Aaron Gordon at the 5, Cam Johnson at the 3. And so you're playing small, but it's not like so small it's absurd. That's what she said. I think that, sorry, that was super disrespectful, super inappropriate for a podcast. Yeah, I think that there are other combinations that Denver can get to. By and large, the lineups that they are most likely to play during the first half of the actual regular season, you're going to get to this, not that one. You're going to get to this game that they played against the LA Clippers. Like, these are the lineups I think that make the most sense from a first half perspective. You just double it for the second half. You're going to get Murray out there. You're going to get Bruce Brown out there, Tim Hardaway Jr., Peyton Watson, Jonas Valanciunas. That's probably going to be what's mostly out there. And then whether it's Christian Brown that comes back in early in that second quarter, or Cam Johnson, or whoever, you're probably going to get those kinds of looks. So Denver's going to have to figure out who makes sense when they stagger Murray and what they're going to have to do. But I'm encouraged by what I've seen so far. I think that Denver has shown a lot. And the most important thing that you can say for Denver so far is that they're really set up for the future. I think that they have enough combinations that they can get off to a great start. And so you start looking at some of the odds, looking down here, there's a couple of interesting player props that have popped up for the Nuggets. Popular player props in FanDuel. Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo to combine for 50-plus triple-doubles is plus 1,200. That's a major long shot, obviously. I actually don't think that Jokic is going to be like a super involved, like, he's been the most involved player in NBA history over the course of the past 5 years. I think they're going to try to kind of set that back a little bit. There are going to be a lot of games where he finishes with like 24, 8, and 8, or 24, 10, and 7, or 26, 9, and 14, because he got up to 14 assists, but wasn't anything crazy. But yeah, Jokic and Giannis combined for 50-plus triple-doubles. That's plus 1,200. Also, according to FanDuel, some of these player specials, OKC and Denver to combine for 120-plus wins. That is only plus 185. That is an excellent bet. Like, that one is excellent, because if it's not Denver, like, hypothetically, let's say Denver doesn't get to 60. I think that one of the reasons for that would be OKC getting to 65 again. So how much wins do you actually need? How many wins do you actually need if you're Denver? Not maybe 55, like, at that point. Could Denver get up to 56, 57 and make it a little easier? Sure. Could OKC win 70 games this year? Sure. That wouldn't surprise me at all. If they seem pretty locked in. It's very much 1992 Bulls and 2016 Warriors-esque, where they already had a historic season, but now you're feeling extremely confident, and there's no team, like, you're defending your title. It'll be exhausting for them during the regular season, but they have the youth and the depth to be able to handle it. So I think that those two bets make a lot of sense. Also, another combination: Jokic or Luka to win MVP, Victor Wembanyama to win DPOY, and Cooper Flagg to win Rookie of the Year. That combination is plus 480. That's pretty decent. That seems pretty likely at this point. Or else Shea just wins again. Okay, folks, that is all I have for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll. Really appreciate the love and support on the podcast as always. Hopefully you liked some of the lineups that I put down here. Let me know if there's a lineup that I didn't discuss that you would like me to kind of take a little bit more of a look at. And there's a lot to get into during the upcoming regular season, but it's just a week away at this point. Again, on Saturday at 11 a.m., I will be at number 38. I'm going to be recording live at that point. So if you're in the area, come say hi. That would be cool. If not, then just know that setup is going to change a little bit for that particular episode. So make sure to check it out. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I will talk to you guys very soon.